In the last lesson, we looked at hooking up Facebook, and so in this lesson, we're going to talk about using Twitter. So it's pretty much the same kind of workflow, but I have our app open here, and I just want to go ahead and take a look at the database. Again, as we did last time, we'll do a connect here. We'll take a look at the social user connection. So if we run that, there's no rows there. And if we look at the user, there's no row for the real Dan Vega, which is my Twitter handle, which we're going to hook up here. So let's close this out. We're going to come back to the documentation. We're going to go over to Spring Social Twitter. And again, we're going to look at a sample app here of registering an application with Twitter, because before we can do anything in our app, we need to make sure we register this application with Twitter. So here's some documentation, but what we want to do is go over to apps.twitter.com, and we're just going to create a new app. And so it's going to ask us for some details here. So the name of the application, we'll call this Running for Brews. And this is going to be our Running for Brews loyalty application. Let's see, this is your application's publicly accessible page, Running for Brews. But that's our publicly accessible URL. So let's go ahead and put that in. We'll say our callback URL. Right now, that's going to be our localhost 8080. We're going to agree, and we're going to create our application. So now it's going to give us some details. Again, here's our application. So we can go into our Running for Brews application. We can go ahead and just make sure all of this information is correct. But what I'm going to do is I have the keys and the access token. I'm going to come back over to my application.yaml file. And again, just like with Facebook, these keys are actually wrong. We're going to want app ID and app secret. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and pause this. I'm going to go ahead and fill in those two values with the values back from the Twitter app, and we'll go ahead and continue. So I'm going to do that, and we'll be right back. All right, so I've entered in my secret key and my secret ID into my settings file there, saved it, restarted my application, and here I am. So now what we're going to do is we're just going to go over to account, and we're going to hit sign in. And again, instead of logging in here, we're going to sign in with Twitter. So I'm going to sign in. It's going to ask me to authorize Running for Brews to use your account. Basically, this application is going to have the ability to read tweets from your timeline, see who you follow. It won't be able to kind of take over your application. But with that, we'll get some basic profile information that we'll use to go ahead and create our account. So we're going to authorize the application. Now, it is a little weird. This thing asks you to sign in with Twitter, and then you kind of have to do this again. But once that's done, it's done. You won't ever have to do that again on subsequent logins. So there I am. I'm logged in as the real Dan Vega, and that's my Twitter handle. This is actually my Twitter photo up here, so we can see all of that. So I'm going to go ahead and log out. Now I'm going to log in as our admin and take a look at the database again. And now if we look under social user, we can see I have that. I have the provider as Twitter, my user ID, the display name, profile picture, and then here's my access token and my secret. So then I can also look at the user, and I can see that information as well. So it's doing exactly what we needed to do. With Twitter, I know we looked at an issue with Facebook. There's a problem with Spring Social, so we had to kind of throw in a little hack to get around that bio. Nothing wrong with Twitter out of the box. Pretty easy to use. Just make sure you set up that app in Twitter, use your secret ID and your secret key in your settings file, and you should be able to get going from there. So I think we'll close it out there. We now have our application being able to log in from both the registering on our side for Running for Brews, or anybody who's got a Twitter account or a Facebook account can now come and log into our application as well. So with that, let's go ahead and move on.